真善美人性的核心价值，生命禅院的人性观。
Truth, goodness, and beauty, the core value of human nature. The perspective of human nature, Lifechanyuan. Shuefeng. The big world in our view is just an art form of truth, goodness, and beauty, but the real truth, goodness, and beauty is hidden among the dazzling art form. There is nothing strange for a piece of two-dimensional canvas, but after the painting of Maestro, this flat canvas can display multi-dimensional space. Hovering clouds during daylight, many peaks scattering in different distance, interspersed by the flowing water under the small bridges, people walking and birds flying. All those infuse people with a sense of truth, goodness, and beauty which characterized with distant quiet and vast infinite. However, let's take a deeper look and ask whether this is the truth, goodness, and beauty. Of course not, it's just an art form, and the real truth, goodness, and beauty is hidden in the back of the picture, in the artist's heart and mind. That is to say, the real beauty is hidden under the representation of art, and everything outside is just the external art manifestation of the hidden truth, goodness, and beauty. Similarly, people's truth, goodness, and beauty are concealed in human nature, and the outward appearance is just the artistic expression of the intrinsic truth, goodness, and beauty. We live in a fantasy art world. We flatter ourselves living truly. In fact, we are just some embellishments on the canvas of artists. As the pigment is washed off, the canvas will restore to a monotonous flat surface. After the change of time-space, the true of us will restore to our original life status quo, and then make a fresh start to another art form. People have 6 perceptions as vision, hearing, olfaction, taste, touch, and telegnosis, and the first 5 perceptions perceive the world by the media of artistic substances. What we perceive are just the external art forms of truth, goodness, and beauty, but not their essential characteristics. Only the telegnosis is able to surpass the artistic material platform to directly perceive the world of truth, goodness, and beauty. Open all, close all.
一、艺术形态的本源就是真。
1. The origin of the art form is truth. Everything perceived by vision, hearing, olfaction, taste, touch are not truth but an art metamorphosis of it, and the real truth is implied at the origin of this artistic representation in the big world. Joe Smith wrote the word human on a blank sheet, and then erased it. What did this process mean? This means that the word human on the blank sheet is not true, but a kind of artistic expression originating from the heart of Joe Smith. The real truth is not the word but Joe Smith the person. The word human will not appear on the blank sheet without the person Joe Smith. That means as long as Joe Smith exists, even if the word human is erased, but there will still be a word human. Is a flash in the pan true? Of course not, it is just another human written on a blank sheet and then being erased. It is just an artistic expression of truth hidden at the origin of epiphyllum, and its truth implies in the life structure of this plant. Is human true? Of course not, human is just an artistic expression form in the life structure. Are bacteria, insects, vegetation, birds, and animals true? Of course not. They are just different artistic expression forms in the life structure. When we see the light of a lightning, the lightning is no longer in existence. When we look up at the stars at night, among those emitting light stars, some of them may have disappeared. When we watch those vivid characters on the video screen, some of the actors may have passed away. When we are complacent of what we own, does it ever occur to you that these things will soon pass out of existence? We live in a virtual reality, and actually what we have seen are all false. Those so-called illusory things, namely the things that the art world tries to express, are true. Visual truth is in line with the scientific and logical deduction, but it is very absurd in the philosophical sense. Standing on a point and going straight ahead, in the end one will unconsciously walk back to the start. Its essential effect equals to 0. Human society seems to be developing and moving to a higher stage of civilization. In fact, it is retracing its steps, and finally will return to the starting point. Winter passes and spring comes. Until the bumper fall passes, it will be back to winter again. For seasons continuously cycle one after another. Fall is coming and the weather is getting cold. A group of wild geese flying south, and this occurs years after years repeatedly. A person from birth to death and from death to rebirth, one world after another, is always in this way from reincarnation to transmigration. He walking and walking seems to be moving forward, but eventually he will return to the starting point. Without the qualitative change, life can only cycle in a strange circle. To avoid moving in circles, we have to focus on truth of life and neglect the art forms of life. To understand truth, we have to be armed with the abnormal thinking. Lifechanyuan begins with the abnormal thinking, in order to guide some people that they should not return to the starting point of life, but should transit to a higher art form of life. People seem like have found truth, but the fact is not. At least we can say that 98% of the people just live in the false art world and have never touched the boundary of truth. Suspended on a cliff with a withered vine in hands, a man would instinctively try to climb up and return to the starting point. If I told him, "Let go, let yourself fall," he would think I am non-benevolent. This is the gap between Buddha and a profane man, is also a benchmark to examine the true and false. What is the truth? The origin of art form is the truth. For everything, as long as we strip off the surface and trace the source, we will eventually find out truth. In fact, the Lifechanyuan has revealed truth before the people's visual field of spiritual sense, that truth is the greatest creator, and there is only one truth in the universe. That is the greatest creator, and except him, all the rest are his artistic expression forms. What we mean by seeking truth is to seek the greatest creator. Human beings have sought truth for thousands of years. Except having found the greatest creator, who dares say, "I have found truth" yet? To seek truth departing from the greatest creator is to make vain efforts, is to deceive oneself, and is to set bondage on human beings. Whether philosophers, thinkers, artists, politicians, scientists, religious leaders, or any other person who seek truth departing from the greatest creator, all their efforts will be in vain and false, confusing the humanity. Lifechanyuan expounds the greatest creator with hundreds of thousands of words, in order to reveal truth for human. However, when some people seeking truth get up to the God in the Bible is not the real greatest creator, they are confused. It is difficult for them to accept when their inherent thinking pattern is overturned, and so they wanted to return to the starting point. It's just like a man who hanging from a cliff with a withered vine. He desperately wants to seize the withered vine and unwilling to let it go. As a result, he cannot climb up the cliff, nor can he get down on the ground, so he can only swing in the air. I get a range out of you crosswise but a summit sidewise, different visages from near or far, from low or high. The Bible, the Quran and Tao Te Ching, the Buddhist scriptures, science, Marxism, Mao Zedong thought as such can only see either a ridge or a peak, either a distance view or see a close shot. Only organically integrating these fragments which are seen from different profiles, we can see a probable panorama of truth. If we just grasp a part of it, and then attack the rest, this is just like the blind men feel an elephant, which can only leave us far from truth. To seek truth and preserve truth is completely different from playing the concept game or moralization. It involves the life trend of each person. The water without a source is bound to dry up. A tree without root is bound to corrupt. The heart without soul is bound to die. A man without telegnosis is bound to transmigrate in a fixed circle again and again. Truth is the key elements in the core value of human nature. Without truth, the person will be short of human nature. A man cannot have a perfect human nature if he does not have the greatest creator in his mind, because his brutish nature may break out at any time to harm others in nature. Is it possible to have a good future if a man is without human nature? It is just a daydream. Someone will inevitably argue, the ideas of Xiefeng are all rubbish, nonsense and fart because some senior officials and millionaires never worship the greatest creator, but live a more elegant and pleasant life than those who worship the greatest creator. That is right. There are a lot of things in this world that can be easily mixed the false with the genuine, but we have to understand, the smaller the specific gravity, the easier of floating and fluttering. For a plant, the faster of growing, the shorter of lifespan, the smaller of energy, the easier of taking shape, the more of the gain, the greater of the loss, the more enjoyment in this life, the more miserable in afterlife. We often praise that the masterwork of art is very lifelike, but we never say that the masterwork of art is truth, because art is just a metamorphosis of truth. We praise all the scientific achievements are very close to truth, but we never dare to say that scientists have found truth, because science is just one way to seek truth. We praise some people are immortals, saints, but we definitely dare not say that they are the embodiment of truth, because the component part of maintaining truth and safeguarding truth in their humanity is just a little more than that in the common peoples. Is everything we can see real? For an instant the discrepancy has been more than 100,000 miles. Everything has changed in a blink. Is it true? Truth is invariable, and the variant is not truth. It's better for us to put more component part of truth in our human nature. R.
维护艺术形态有序和谐的机制就是善。
2. To maintain the orderly and harmonious mechanism of the art form is goodness. The entire material world is the artistic expression form of the recessive truth, goodness and beauty, while the mechanism that safeguards these art forms to be orderly and harmonious is goodness. Without goodness, everything would be unordered, inordinate, ugly, unharmonious and unbearable. The greatest creator designs the order of the universe in accordance with the law of supreme goodness. If we observe the world around us carefully, it is not difficult to find the orderliness and concordance of the big world. Voluminous celestial bodies run harmoniously without hindering others. Atmosphere and atmospheric composition of the different gases coexist together and form a harmonious whole. Oceans, rivers, lakes and streams locate in their own position and coexist harmoniously. On the earth, mountains, valleys, plains and hills and harmoniously constitute a beautiful landscape painting. The underground microorganisms, the insects and animals on the ground, fish in rivers and lakes and birds flying in the sky all coexist harmoniously in a total vertical crossing living space for life, which is a masterpiece of the great goodness, is the ideal and state of the goodness. For the individual of human members, the desire and behavior of trying to keep the harmonious mechanism of the big world and maintain the orderliness and concordance between oneself with the surrounding life and the ecological environment where life depends on our goodness. Specifically speaking, all the mentality that is full of the reverence to the greatest creator, the reverence for life and the reverence to nature is goodness. All the conducts that try to safeguard the greatest creator, to maintain order, to love life and protect nature are goodness. To examine human, Chinese ethic people as an example, according to the law of goodness, order and harmony, we can find some unkindness in our desires and behaviors. Looking back the history, we will find those emperors who did not awe God or heaven were unkind, and there would be the frequent disasters, social unrest, the rampant robbers, the ubiquitous complaints and the unable surviving masses when those emperors governed kingdoms. On the contrary, if emperors awed God and heaven, there would be good weather, all things prosperous, honesty prevailing throughout society, people living happily, social harmony and peace. This indicates that good prachaya grows good fruit and bad prachaya results in evil consequence. Comparing the leaders of the two countries, China and the United States, we find a phenomenon of a good and evil retribution. U.S. presidents, in the oath of office, always place himself humbly under the greatest creator, and the result is that the U.S. economy develops rapidly with social prosperity, the people affluence and everyone feeling happy. In view of China, the previous leaders in their minds arrogantly placed themselves in the position of being a savior and never believed in the greatest creator, and the result is the suppression of human nature, the suppressed human rights, freedom giving way to power, terror haunting around. In view of the recent facts, the suppression on the personages of democracy and freedom, the rights deprivation on the religion believers, the flagrant violations on the national people's property, the indifference and control on the petitioners highlighted non-goodness of the Chinese leaders, and the unkindness of the government conduct. Economic development and material wealth cannot conceal the essence of unkindness. There are always some people who think it is big goodness to solve the subsistence problem. In fact, the problem of food belongs to the property of animals, and there are the elements of free speaking and free pouring in the property human. If people have lost the right of freely expression their ideals, beliefs, thoughts, lost the right to move freely, and then the whole implication of goodness is just regarded as the food problem, then what is the difference between human beings with the animal in a cage? I raised 2 dogs and I fed them enough meat, food and pure clean water pumped from the well every day. I also allowed them to run and chase unscrupulous on the evergreen lawn surrounded by trees. Could it be said that my 2 big dogs have shared human rights? No, it is just the dog rights at most. Misgovernment makes the people rebel because the people have to rebel. But the revolt is definitely not goodness. All the actions such as revolt, rebellion, robbery, deprivation, massacre, fighting to overthrow the dictatorship and eradication as such have destroyed the order, and all these actions are not goodness. All the mentality and actions such as launch of vengeful counterattack, scores settlement, awaiting the revenge, malicious attack, wantonly slandering, spreading rumors, stirring up trouble, encouraging hatred, provoking dissension, splitting nation, personal attacks and fame slandering are not goodness. All the large-scale movements combining culture with politics are not goodness. All those movements such as the May 4th movement, the June 4th, and the Great Cultural Revolution destroyed goodness of human nature and natural mind, in which countless good people were treated unjustly, through which people became more and more cunning, selfish. Actions of destructing the natural environment, regardless of what high-sounding name that bannered, are not goodness because their essence is a prodigal son's behavior, which aims at destructing the homeland and foundation of descendants. All the mentality and actions such as jealousy, hatred, manufacturing fake to reap huge profits, counterfeiting brand name, stealing others' achievements, oppression, exploitation, fraud, extortion, blackmail, theft, murder, arson, abuse, loan sharking, adding insult to injury are not goodness. All the plots invented or created on the battlefield, officialdom, market, casinos, situation related with love aim at entrapping, blowing, weakening and destroying the others are not goodness. Goodness is a scale to measure of a person's human nature. To find out if a person is goodness or not depends on whether he can keep harmonious relationship with the world around him. Once the disharmony appears, at least one part, and even 2 or more parties are non-goodness. Goodness can be classified to greater goodness and common goodness. The greater goodness is the property of the greatest creator, gods and Buddha, and the common goodness is the property of saints, sages and wise men. The big benevolence seems heartless, the big goodness seems evil. Keeping Satan, predators and designedly destroying part of the human are conducts of the high goodness, which is difficult to be understood according to the common sense. To maintain the orderliness and harmony of human and nature is just to conduct the low goodness. Human can only preserve the low goodness and should not conspire the high one, otherwise human will certainly take the road of demons. If politicians are unkind, it will inevitably lead to the popular discontent. If thinkers are unkind, this is bound to misguide human. If scientists are unkind, they are bound to become the accomplices fighting against human. If religionists are unkind, they are bound to terrify human with terror. If writers are unkind, the novelettish works are bound to pollute the human soul. If artists are unkind, this is bound to make the antics distort humanity. Goodness is also a state. The nice ideal comes from the wish of goodness. I wish everyone has goodness and everyone has a nice ideal.
3. 艺术形态的和谐比例搭配和对称就是美。
3. The harmony, proportion, collocation and symmetry of art forms are beauty. The art form of nature, including human, is designed by the greatest creator in light of the law of beauty. The law of beauty is the harmony, proportion, collocation and symmetry, and everything from the configuration of the celestial bodies to the outward appearances of plants, From the crystal structure to the different shapes of animals, from thick and thin of color to the light and shade of light embodies the harmony, proportion, collocation and symmetry, gives an infinite beauty for visual sense. What the sense of beauty brings people are comfort, safety, happiness, joy, delight, tranquility and peace, but the forms being unsuitable to the sense of beauty bring people with nausea, anabole, dizziness, anxiety, anxiousness, depressing, worry and terror. The towering cliffs, tilted building, disabled body, grotesque objects, far-fetched environmental layout, drawings and sculptures composed by unmatched proportion, strange sounds and music without any melody, the dyed yin and yang head of young people and clothing with asymmetric patterns on left and right sides, etc. make people fretful and uncomfortable. Graceful art form and environment endows life with longevity, but the ungraceful art form and environment makes life short and even leads to suicide. In view of human society, a charitable king, the highly efficient government agencies with few but good staff, the management mechanism with a pyramid model will impress a sense of beauty on people. However, a management mechanism with tripartite balance of forces, overstaffed organization, inefficient work, no one in charge and interference of many other departments can only give people a sense of chaos, disorder, blindness, depression and sense of foreboding. In view of families, the cell of society, showing respect for the aged and love for the young, the harmonious couples, elders and juniors each in their places, female coordination, friendly neighborhood and self-effacing for siblings will bring people with the beautiful sense of tranquility and peace. However, the families characterizing with the insatiable senior, irreverent junior, weak male, strong female, hostile neighborhood, suspicious and vengeful brothers and sisters bring people with a sense of foul atmosphere, incomprehension, reversion of yin and yang and disarrangement. In view of the human individual, a man with proud temper, rash character, bad fortune and poor wisdom prefers seeking quick success and instant benefits, but he always conspires a great cause. A man speaks rudely, stirs up enmity and is not good at his own job, but he always makes random comments on others. A man ignores his proper occupation, but he always wants to incite and abets others so as to start a campaign. A man always gives up halfway, sticks to his guns, worships nothing, changes by day after day and seldom reflects on himself, but he always blames that others' life proportion is inharmonious, asymmetric and short of beauty. The advanced state of people's ideological level is the state of supreme goodness and supreme beauty. What they called saints refer to the people whose ideological level have reached the ultimate state of goodness and beauty. We can always tell the dignity and humbleness of a man's soul depending on the proportion of the goodness and beauty that his whole human nature occupied. The appreciation and pursuit of beauty is the eternal and maximum driving force to promote human to move on towards the civilization. In order to seek the sense of beauty, some scientists, artists, philosophers, thinkers, writers and religionists begin their active learning, exploring and progressing. It is absolutely not simply to gain the powers and material benefits that they are engaged in their careers. The beauty of all is added by the greatest creator. To safeguard the beauty is the bounden duty for the gods and the Buddha, the ideal and pursuit for the saint, the sage and the wise men, wishes for the ordinary people. Beauty is one of the core values of human nature. Only when beauty is in human nature can the lives bloom brilliant flowers and bear rich fruit. If a person abandons the beauty, his life would wither, and his life journey would be calamitous. Wish everyone has beautiful human nature.
4. 顺便谈谈忍。
4. Endurance. A blade on heart forms the Chinese character of forbearance, which is a way of humiliatingly seeking the existence in a desperation state. The greatest creator does not require us to live disgracefully. If we regard forbearance as an excellent quality of human nature, we would have completely departed from the principle that of well-being, which is to say we have given up the freedom and human rights and we just serve as the role of cattle, horses, pigs, and dogs. Simply asking people to endure is the smoke ball released by the autocratic power and robbers in order to maintain their own vested interests, and is the poison alluring people to commit suicide. If we break down the forbearance into suffering, tolerance, and enduring humiliation in order to carry out an important task, which appear in the humility and reconciliation, in the pursuit of truth and in the devotion of cause, that is the symbol of goodness and beauty. But if we submit to humiliation, bear our shame and ignore it pitilessly in order to survive, we will indeed become a symbol of cattle, pigs, and dogs. I often queue up at oversea. If someone wants to cut in line, others would scold and stop him immediately. In this way, everyone stands in line with a good order. But in China, if someone, especially a big guy with a frightening face, cuts in the line, few people would stand out to stop him. Why does this happen? For people have learnt to forbear and learnt to survive disgracefully. In order to survive disgracefully, and many Chinese people have played the forbearance to its extreme, they are indifferent to hooligans molesting women on the street, the evil hand of the thief reaching into the pockets of others, those evil factory owner discharging toxic water into the river, watching the selfish lazy person to brazenly dump the rubbish in public places, seeing the people's asset entering the private pockets in disguised form, seeing a bully under the protection of a powerful person insulting the weak, seeing the merchants who are obsessed with money manufacturing the toxic food, seeing the marketing fake products, seeing people do not feel ashamed about all those things. They endure the sufferings and have self-improved and own some profound forbearing intention. So human nature has forfeited, and everyone has become the dignified monks who seem to be otherworldly. Comrades, my fellow citizens and church members, please forbear it. To forbear it forever, to forbear it until the ground and the sky are reversed, to forbear it until the right and wrong are confounded, to forbear it until the ghosts and monsters are rampant, to forbear it until the goblins in the pantry, to forbear it until the sun and the moon are dimmed, to forbear it until the seas run dry and the rocks crumble, to forbear it until one is put in a coffin and sent to crematorium, until all our free and nice human life being buried by ourselves. The famous dictum of the universe is truth, goodness, and beauty, in which I do not find the forbearance. Tao is running strictly according to the law of life. Going against the Tao, one is certain to be punished severely, whereas following the Tao, one is bound to be rewarded. The greatest creator will definitely not prefer forbearance. Neither will the gods nor the Buddha. Forbearance is the violation and desecration of life, is the rebellion and destruction of human nature. Shall we continue to forbear?
(5) 结语
5. Conclusion. Truth, goodness, and beauty are the origin of the art forms in the world, the attributes of the greatest creator, and the core values of human nature. Truth is the origin of the art form. Goodness is an orderly and harmonious mechanism to safeguard the art form. Beauty is the harmony, proportion, collocation, and symmetry of the art form. The combination of the universe is the combination of truth, goodness, and beauty, without which there will be no the universe. Human is a kind of art form as well as a kind of art metamorphosis of truth, goodness, and beauty. Truth, goodness, and beauty have the features of immutability, but all the rest are just works of art which will change along with the changes of time and space. The lofty ideal is a kind of ideological level in seeking and safeguarding truth, goodness, and beauty. This ideological level can make a man's life a continuing transit to the eternal truth, goodness, and beauty, and will eventually win the eternity of life. The essential difference of the ignorant person, the laity, the mortal, the sage, and the saint lies in the different remaining proportion of the ingredient in its own human nature. The fewer the ingredients, the more likely to locate in the state of animal world. The more the ingredients, the more likely to move towards the sage, the celestial, to become the celestial being, the God, and the Buddha. This is not the far-fetched false talk. As long as there is the relatively perfect quality of truth, goodness, and beauty in our human nature, isn't it difficult to become a celestial being? The Thousand-Year World, The 10,000-year world and Elysium world are the perfect world of truth, goodness, and beauty. If we can reach the perfect standard of truth, goodness, and beauty, it is not difficult for us to enter the high-level life space. Little strokes fell great oaks. Constant effort brings success. The pursuers of truth, goodness, and beauty need continuous gnosis and exploration, continuous insight into a profound theory. Things will be easily settled when conditions are ripe. Whether we can reach the perfect world of truth, goodness, and beauty completely depends on the secret of nature.